Hey Dramatics, welcome back. So we're going to dive straight into this episode 4 of When the Phone Rings. And I have forgot to include this little disclaimer in my episode 3 recap, but this will still hold true for all recaps that will reflect these deep dives and reflections. So there's going to be spoilers galore when it comes to this thing. So watch on if you've already seen episode 4 or if you just don't care. So starting off, we get a little call back from Pak Sun. He's at the cemetery with the press secretary and a lot of his other colleagues to honor all of their fallen soldiers. This little bit was shown at the end of episode 3 of him receiving a call when they're about to leave. Now, we know what the phone call is, which is the hospital telling him that they can't locate Hong Ki-ju's dad, and since he's listed as the emergency contact, which makes sense since he's the only one who can verbally communicate. His boss, who is the press secretary, offers Pak Sun his car after he discloses that something has gone awry with his father-in-law and that he needs to go ahead and tend to that. So we get him with his big boy hero walk up to the scene where Hong Ki-ju is on the side of the road and him dropping knowledge of her wifey's status. He puts her in the car, asking her to wait while he talks to the police officers she was with. He iterates that he'll come down to follow the police report, but asking a favor to keep their family matter private. The male police officer returns volley, wanting a favor from Pak Sun because he wants a picture from him. Pak Sun reassures him that he'll do it at the police station as long as the officers keep quiet about everything. He gets back into the car and the police drive off. His motorcycle escort has long since pulled off, so they're not even there by the time the other police officers pull out of the scene. He tells Hong Ki-ju that her dad's nurse has his number and that they should move him into a new nursing home anyway, which is what I said in the middle of the episode. I'm like, just go ahead and move the man. But I wouldn't have thought that Hong Ki-ju would want him to move her father, because this might be something else she will have to owe him for, and especially since she's trying to get out of this marriage, she doesn't have the money to do that, and that this will be something else you might have to pay him back for. Like after their divorce, what will become of her father? So Pak Sun says, how could he go so far? Meaning that he knew that the kidnapper was involved in her father going missing for a time. Then he reassures her that he'll take care of her father and that she doesn't have to worry. Then in this very quiet car, Hong Ki-ju breaks down in tears. She just starts sobbing with sounds. I mean, I feel so bad for her. It hurt my heart to see her breaking down like this. And you think that you get compassion from Pak Sun. No, it's nothing but confusion, at least at first. Because he says something that I was thinking about at the same time. But he's just like, you're making sounds. And she looks over to him because she's stunned at being possibly found out. And she stops sobbing. But Pak Sun has this look on his face now that it seems as if like her sobbing, her sounds are the best sounds he's ever heard. Marveling that Hong Ki-ju can make sounds. And he's so happy about this and perhaps a little hopeful. He's probably thinking that this is a breakthrough and that she could possibly learn how to talk and eventually talk to him. And maybe this is one of the things that he's always wished for. There is also a brighter ray of sun coming through the window when this revelation happens. This is so beautifully done because of the meaning behind it. Especially, it's befitting that it's encompassing Pak Sun and gets stronger during this moment. It's like a halo and aura around him. And why is that? Well, yellow symbolizes happiness, warmth, amusement, and clarity. He embodies all these emotions in this scene, but with every color, no matter how positive, there is also a negative side. And in this case, it tells of caution and deception. As heartbreaking and touching as this moment is, she is still deceiving him. She doesn't come clean to him at all. She stifles her cries and tries to rein it all in. And then, of course, he had to ruin the moment by handing her his handkerchief and telling her teasingly, though, but still ruining it, that she was looking so ugly right now, but still with a smile. But still, I'm just like, man, forget you. I couldn't deal with it. I would have dumped him personally, but whatever. He then says that he won't stop her from crying and that if she wants to, go ahead. She has like pretty much full range to go ahead and do so. She goes ahead and sobs into his handkerchief and they drive off. So the next scene, we have Nayuri going to to one of her favorite spots in the neighborhood, ordering food, and guess who she spots here? Yes, she spots Ji Sang-woo. And y'all, I'm already liking their dynamics. Their cuteness together is totally working on me. Because I'm always pretty. Yuri is the bubbly girl to our little serious G. I like things the way they are, Sang-woo. I mean, she destroyed his kimbap with a fork, so I feel mad about that too. Nayuri figures out that his crush is Hong Hee-ju, which he reacts with spitting up water while he was drinking it. But he's like, okay, quid pro quo. Spokesperson Park-sun, why are you fangirling so hard over him? Because I'm sure Ji Sang-woo is wondering, what's there to like? The man would turn a rainbow gray looking at it. Nayuri admits that she didn't like him at first, that he had originally scared her. So why is that? Well, Mr. Park-sun apparently was an original newscaster at HBC, and he is grilling Nayuri on the spot when she's covering a story on microplastics and what can be legally done to prohibit it in lieu of individual efforts. Nayuri is floundering, unable to give any answers to his questions. And this is on air, by the way, so her execution is live. Apparently, he likes breaking in new recruits by eating them up and spitting them out. Sounds lovely, but him being tough isn't without reasons. He could still say things in a better manner, but after he runs into her after she's cried herself in the bathroom, which I get it, I would have too, Park-sun offers to help her to become a better news anchor, even if it means getting a head start at 2 a.m. But she's had a high regard for him for teaching her the ropes on being a better news anchor. Then fangirling mode comes back full force when she says her disappointment that after a while he had quit to become the spokesperson to the president and then eventually got married. Ji Sang-woo is curious on who that lucky lady is. Nayuri, glancing around the place, starts spilling tea to him about Park-sun's family. His grandfather, the chairman, has been a big figure political-wise, except scoring the presidency. That's the only thing he hasn't done yet. His father is currently a strong presidential candidate, and he has other family members that have been prime ministers down to mayors. So his family background is politically stacked. So it only makes sense that he's married to someone heavily influential, like the eldest daughter of Chairman Hong, who is Hong Ina. But we know that didn't happen. So Park-sun drives them to a swanky hotel, and she's looking at it in bewilderment. And he's like, what? Did you just remember what the day is today? Like, are we talking birthday or anniversary? Well, they get to a room where he asks her to freshen up because she's a mess from crying and snotting. So he's like, go clean your face, blow your nose. And he orders room service. After she goes to the bathroom, she comes out and he wishes them to talk now because he wants to have a genuine conversation with her. She wonders if this will be an interrogation, and he reassures her it's not. And I just love how they're always on the same wavelength, that he's able to discern what she's thinking without knowing what she's saying or what she's thinking in her head. He did that while they were in bed the last episode of asking her to forget everything that happened the night she was kidnapped. He breaks it down where he knows someone has been fooling with them, messing with her car, bombing his office, and now messing with her father. He hasn't gotten the police involved, but if this persists, he'll have no other choice. And he takes the chair she's in and swivels it around, getting in her face and trapping her in. And I love how they focus on his wedding ring. Always love seeing the wedding ring on his finger. And again, it is very sexy. It is very sexy to me. But he does make a point. With this shift, and the kidnapper possibly coming after her, the police will start digging into her. So is there anything she's hiding? Lots, my dude, lots. But a lot of those sins aren't even her own, but she's an unfortunate accomplice in them. Again, he's able to read her immediately, her face giving away something. Park-sun says that he could force her to cough up whatever she's hiding, but he won't. That they weren't that close to exchange such secrets. And you can tell that it bothers him. And I'm sure it's because there's some secrets he wishes he could share with her, but he can't. Food shows up, which he rolls into the room after room service leaves it at the door at his request. He has a variety of foods like macarons, fruits, pastries, and sushi. He asks her to eat and rest and that he'll go downstairs. So what's downstairs? Dinner with his parents, where dad is draining a glass of wine and asking for another. He's so nervous, and after his wife tells him to relax and he wouldn't, she steps on his bouncing foot to bring him the heel. She might be a cool customer, but I kind of like Park Sun's mother for right now. I didn't think I would, considering how dismissive she was regarding Hong Hee-joo in episode 2, I believe, when she was just like, this wedding shouldn't have taken place, and that she has no idea why she doesn't like her. I think it's because by association of who she's related to, her of a mother. So you can tell by the time Park Sun exits the elevator that this is one meeting he doesn't want to attend. When he sits down before them, they ask him where his wife is, and he says she's not feeling well. His father asks him to call her, and Park Sun is essentially like, look, let's just eat. I only have the bandwidth of an hour to deal with you. So wasn't there something y'all wanted to talk to me about? Like, let's not drag this out. Let's go ahead and get this over with, because I don't want to look at y'all any longer than I have to. So the reason for this dinner, there's going to be a special broadcast on the presidential candidates, and his father is asking Park Sun to be on it for a good showing. Park Sun, who looks like he would rather moonwalk on lava than participate, isn't able to reply before Hong Hee-joo, who woke up past 8, hurries downstairs to sit next to him. His father continues that practically this special is bragging rights, showing off children, the people that those children are married to, down to their talented pets. But he's like, in our family, the only thing I can show off is my son. And Park Sun is looking down, already got a bad taste in his mouth, and it ain't from the steak that he ate. So, before watching this scene initially, I figured that there was a bone of contention regarding who Park Sun was married to, and there is. And of course, it also helped, like I had said before in episode 2, that his mother had pretty much told Park Sun that I don't think this wedding should have taken place at all. So, Senior Park is feeling that Chairman Hung had pulled a switcheroo on him regarding the brides at the last minute, and he's feeling very indignant that Chairman Hung didn't have any faith in him to win the election. After all, Hung Hee-na is the far more quote-unquote appealing choice by way of accomplishments and poise out of the 2 daughters, and he finds that this quote-unquote bargain basement bride, meaning Hong Hee-joo, to be very useless. I also figured that Park Sun conspiring with Hong Hee-na to switch with Hong Hee-joo was kept under wraps. He knew his parents would flip from the change and would try and stop it, but Hong Hee-joo was the person he wanted, and he'll be damned if anyone talks down to her. So he gets up and heads towards the door. His mother insists him not to be rude and that they were still having dinner. Oh, Park Sun is done with dinner. Park Sun asked someone to bring it, which was a man handing off a camera to him. It was paparazzi at the hotel that his father had planted in order to garner hopes in a headline, maybe alluding to the fact that Park Sun will be interested in eventually helping his father on his campaign and also being interested in becoming president himself. But Park Sun lets him know up front there's no amount of force or threats that will have him admit that he'll participate or not. It was his choice if he wanted to. Especially after you just insulted his wife, to hell with that. As he was about to drag Hong Hee-joo with him out the door, Senior Park chucks the wine glass at him, and Park Sun twirls Hong Hee-joo around to avoid it, the glass breaking against the wall. His father comes around the table to confront him, and Park Sun, after seeing his wife was alright, turns to face his father but keeps his hand on her arm but keeps her behind him. It's a great symbolism of how he's always been, that buffer against his parents' disapproval of her and his marriage. This is him defending his choice, and at the end of every day, his choice is her. And it's almost as if he's drawing on strength from her to bolster his resolve to stand firm between her and his parents. His father calls him an arrogant brat, you first, sir, but whatever, and snatches him up by his jacket, essentially saying that Park Sun acting out of line will result in his downfall, especially since Park Sun can't make it outside his shadow. And Park Sun, who says this with a cocky smile, is like, what makes you think that I'm still there? Meaning like still in your shadow. Like, I have made moves on my own. I don't need you or your influence. I got this on my own. I'm good. And then Park Sun kind of thinks about it for a minute, and he's utterly accusing his dad of possibly putting the kidnapper in play in order to get Park Sun to bend. Park Sr. has no idea what he's talking about, but Park Sun says this in a beautiful parting shot. You got a shot at being the president all because of grandfather's machinations of getting you to the doorway, and the basic thing that you can do is walk through it. You don't need my help to push you in. Drops mic, walks out with wifey in tow. Oh, that was so good. I just love that he does not cower underneath his parents' influence, and it seems like he's still walking the steps he's supposed to, but it's by his own terms. I'm sure that they had told him that he was supposed to marry Chairman Hung's daughter. He's like, I technically did, but I married the daughter I wanted. So Park Sun's mom was already wearing this little smile of like, oh, so this was how you're going to convince him, and that he ruined everything. Senior Park, like a child, blamed Park Sun for starting it. The slow blink she gave this man was priceless. Like, this little grown man is running for president? To be honest, it sounds like too many countries that we know of with this same issue. Anyway, Park Sun and Hong Hee-joo are on the elevator. Their hands are clasped tightly together, but when she notices this, she's trying to get her hand out, but he's holding on to her firmly. He says, I bet you want a divorce. Ding ding ding. And it must suck when you have such crappy in-laws who you can't even defend yourself against. Then he says, don't listen to them. They're the type of people who can easily replace their children, which confirms my theory of him being a replacement kid. And all through his spiel, she's still trying to get out of his grip, but he's not letting go. He adjusts his grip to strengthen his hold onto her. Such great symbolism again, because he will never let her go, at least not willingly. Also, going back a little bit to the dinner scene, him holding onto her when the dad approaches to confront him, and him putting his hand on her and keeping her shielded. It's like he's already strong on his own, but she's his anchor and the source that he can tap into for additional strength. So once they get to the garage at their apartment, Park Sun gets a call from Park Do-jae and asks Hong Hee-joo to go inside. Park Do-jae confirms that the teeth left with Hong Hee-joo's father were animal, but before hanging up, Park Sun asks a favor, which we later find out is a newer and better assisted living place for Hong Hee-joo's dad. All the while, Hong Hee-joo, who had the phone on her, is having flashbacks on her day regarding her father and talking to the kidnapper. And so now she doesn't want to be involved with any of that. I had also realized this when I was doing episode 3 editing. I remember that the puppet master had asked the kidnapper not to work alone. So now the kidnapper has roped Hong Hee-joo in to work with him. So now she is an accomplice in this whole entire thing, unintentional or not. And it's crazy that now she's also tied closer into this whole plot of pretty much dismantling Park Sun and his family and his secrets and lies and all that stuff. So she wraps the phone into some paper and she's about to take the trash out when her husband shows up. He offers to take it out for her. She refuses to let go of the bag and they literally have a tug of war over it. I'm like, sure, just be more obvious, why don't you? They keep at this until her phone rings and she goes back to her room to answer it. She gets a call from her boss on a video call, and her boss with all her colleagues are holding signs and they are wishing her the best of luck on her interview at the president's office. Park Sun also wishes her luck too, who is standing at the threshold of her room. Hong Hee-joo asks if she gets this job, then what? Their families may freak out at them working together. Park Sun tells her essentially that, don't you want to do something on your own merit and stop bending to what others say and think? This time she can dictate her own direction in life without her family interfering. Then she says, when I get it then, you better let me know what the game plan is when I get there and what you're gonna do about it. I also have found it fascinating that he's been the one who's been pushing her to do this job. I'm thinking he's pushing her because it's a very prominent position that could possibly shut his dad up. After all, his dad is thinking she hasn't amounted to anything in her life. But with Hong Hee-joo doing a high-level job at the president's office as being the interpreter, it will be great points and aesthetics for presidential optics. Of course, I don't think he's doing this for his dad's approval. He could care less about that. I think it's more to prove his father wrong and that his wife is not only a great woman, but quite skilled at what she does. So on that next day, Park Sun comes into the office late, and after a brief scuffle between a couple of the co-workers outside, Park Do-jae wins out, but he is called into the office by Park Sun, so he wins by that default. So Park Do-jae is saying that they'll be able to adjust the modulation to where they can determine pitch, range, age, and gender. Park Sun says he isn't really keen on hearing the kidnapper's voice, but will still keep that option open. Park Do-jae also goes into a report about Ji Sang-woo that some of his past videos on his YouTube channel are on these serial arsons that had taken place, and that he appears to be very knowledgeable about that sort of thing, and that he's currently also working at HBC doing a show called Crime Report. Kang Yi-woo comes in, hands him a folder of all the interpreter interviewees that are coming in, and he asks if Park Sun will sit in on it. Will he? Well, the candidates are brought in a few at a time. Hong Hee-joo is brought in with 2 others, and they have to participate in a practical exam one by one, where they'll be judged off of their quick thinking and sign language speed going off an existing brief video. And Park Sun isn't in the room, but the briefing video they have to watch is of him. But Hong Hee-joo has already done her homework on him because she knew exactly which briefing this was, which was from a 2020 Korea-Egypt summit. Girl, were you studying him for homework on sharpening your skills or for other reasons? I'm thinking also for other reasons, personally. What we also see here is that there's a camera set up to record in real time all the candidates, so Park Sun is watching her interview live in his office. It seems like he is engaged with his wife being on screen. Yeah, a little bit, but then he notices something. During another candidate's interpretation, Kang Young-woo gets a call, and apparently it's Park Sun notifying him ahead of time that he is on his way. I honestly thought he might have taken the high road and not go into that room because it would have been a conflict of interest. Of course, other people wouldn't know why, but I thought he would take that upon himself to do, which originally he did, I guess, until he noticed what was wrong. So once he sits, he calls on Hong Hee-joo to answer him a question honestly, and if she had gotten an advanced script of this briefing since she had anticipated everything he was about to say before he said it. Now, I saw this scene also as a little bit of a callback to the grilling he had done to Na Yuri when he was an anchor at HBC. So Park Sun apparently is equal opportunity when it comes to grilling people. He's more than willing to do this to his own wife, but it also shows that at this current time, he's not being partial or biased towards her just because they are married. And in case she gets this job and word gets out that she is his wife, no one could say that she truly got in by nepotism because of how hard he was on her. But put a marker in this scene for now because we will revisit this later. Hong Hee-joo confesses that she had already studied these videos. Then he asks if she doesn't mind doing it to a different one, which she agrees to. She starts her interpretation with the same thing. She's already predicting what he's saying. He tells Kang Yi-woo to skip to the next video, and then the next, and then the next. After he tells Kang Yi-woo to stop the videos, he asks Hong Hee-joo if she studied all of these, which she says, yeah, and it'll be the same result no matter which one you show me. But Park Sun is firm in pressuring her for a flaw, that these were at random points of time and yet she memorized all of them? How was she able to sign in time to his voice? Surely not a coincidence. She admits she was crazy when she started watching his videos, studying him, his articulation points, the way his mouth moves, everything to where she can anticipate what he's going to say before he actually utters it. But Park Sun asked though, but you can't speak at all? Kang Yi-woo was like, that's not really relevant since she just needed to pass this part for interpretation, and since all she has to do is talk with her hands, what's the big deal here? But Park Sun goes further, asking how is she going to communicate with the spokesperson's team. And Hong Hee-joo tells him, I can teach you sign language if you feel like I might be off in any interpretation you want to come across. It ain't that hard. He said that would be in consideration if she gets the job. Now, last test, he was going to read a document and she has to sign off the cuff. Now, the words that he reads are so intimately tied to their relationship regarding couples day. So what he says here is so compelling and telling, I have to say it word for word, so bear with me. He says, Couples Day is a national observance established to remind us of the importance of marital relationships and to encourage the building of harmonious families. There's a couple here now. And Paxton now closes his eyes to where the scene shifts. And it shifts to where it's only him and his wife in a darkened room, with the light really only illuminating Hong Hee-joo, who is still doing sign language. I love that this part that she's not the only one that's also seen shift, imagining them being isolated in a way. Number two, there's also some significance with this light being on her, especially if you listened and read the lyrics to See the Light, the song that's in the outro of each episode up to this point. I don't know if it's changing from here on out, but at least for now, that's been the outro song. It tells you all you need to hear about his emotions regarding her. He continues by walking up to her, though. The two have lived without being able to open up to each other. Would things have been different if they had been more honest and shown their true feelings? If they tried to make an effort now, could they live like any other ordinary couple? Yet again today, like how a mind game is played, the couple merely tries to read each other's minds. The ironic thing is that their behavior is surprisingly similar. There's not really much I need to add to this because he literally just said it all. After it's said and done, he asks to stop the proceedings there for right now and leaves out before anyone else. And after he rounds the corner, he's bracing himself against the windowsill, recalling what she had told him in episode 3 about her being able to read people and what she said in the interview of fixating on his videos to where she mimicked practice and dug in. More like dug into him, and he's feeling the effects of it. He says, Hong Hee-joo, what are you? What are you what? What kind of woman is she? Because I say she's damn talented and special. Or what is she doing to you? Apparently something soul stirring, or else you wouldn't have ran like you did from that interview. And I think it is very soul stirring to know that someone is so entrenched in you like that. That deep connection is hard to shake, and I know he doesn't want to. So now we go to the airport and we see someone returning. Someone we haven't met yet, but we knew eventually we would. The elder sister, Hong Yi-na, is back. It is looking like some stuff is about to go down from the attitude walk she has. So I'm already clocking her as someone who will be up to no good from here on out. That's the vibe I'm getting, considering how she was already coming at Paxson with spilling the family tea if he didn't call off their marriage. Well, luckily for her, she wasn't the one he wanted anyway. But unlucky for Hong Hee-joo, her return will cause trouble. I can feel it. So Hong Hee-joo's dad is moved into his swanky new accommodations at the assisted living facility that Paxson had his father-in-law move into. He's watching TV while enjoying some of his favorite fruit while Hong Hee-joo visits him. She looks over and sees some ad replacements. Shaver and aftershave. But let's call it what it is. It's an ad placement. She asks her father about it and he says, "Don't worry, father. No matter what happens, I'll protect you and Hee-joo." Meaning that Paxson personally left this and told her father this. She muses out loud that he can be cold but kind, but that he's also very hard to figure out. Kang Yoo-woo gives Paxson the evaluations for the interpreter interviews, and he asks Paxson if he's yay or nay regarding Hong Hee-joo. When Paxson asked why he was wondering that, Kang Yoo-woo was like, "You tore the room upside down in interviewing her, and everyone was taking bets regarding his feelings about her." Well, about her performance, not personally, since of course nobody knows their true relationship. But Kang Yoo-woo walks out and he says that he likes her, and Paxson co-signs on that. Oh, we know you like her, but you like her, like love her, like her. Now we're getting a flashback to when they were younger. There's a party thrown between the Hung and the Pak families. Little Pak's son, feeling a little antsy, gets up and goes to the roof. His mother comes and tells him that it's rude for him not to eat what was served to him as an invited guest. And she also says, "My son likes fish." Again, that replacement kid thing. And I hate that they're forcing this baby to eat something he's not a fan of based off of their real son's likes and dislikes so he can acclimate. Plus, the kidnapper gutting a fish in the last episode, again, it points to him being the original Pak son to me. It might be a coincidence, but maybe not. I'm just putting it out there. He puts it in his mouth before his mother leaves, but spits it into a tissue when she does. He overlooks the party to see where Hung Hee-ju is being scolded by her mother, and this woman asks her daughter to stop stuffing her face, which, like, Hung Hee-ju is just like, "I haven't really eaten anything." And then her mom is just like, "Well, why can't you have more poise and grace like Hong Ina?" Again, I need that truck to come for her soon. Like, run her over right now. I can't stand her. Pak son, overseeing her being mistreated, comes and hauls her away. He switches plates with her to where she can have his full plate of sushi, which she enjoys with pleasure until she starts to choke on it. He pats her on the back, encouraging her to slow down and ask for her name, which she spells it out into his hand. Again, I love the tie in here because while they were at the hotel earlier in the episode, he also ordered her sushi then too. I love that this seemed to be like their first meeting, and yet he's already fiercely protective over her. So as we return back to our current reality, Pak son is looking at her evaluation picture, wondering when did she grow up so much? And you can also tell hubby's proud of his wife. He then gets a text from said wife thanking him for changing her dad's nursing home. She notices that he reads her text, but when you think he's about to respond back, she gets a notification. It's a notification of her sister, Hong Ina, taking a picture of the skyline, meaning that she's back home from being abroad. We get another little flashback from 3 years ago when Hung Hee-ju gets word from her mother that she will be the one who will be marrying Pak son, not Hong Ina. So when she goes to her sister's room, she's no longer there, but the wedding dress is, and this is the same wedding dress she is wearing in episode 1. So it makes you wonder, is that the reason why Pak son asked her to take it off? Because he would have rather her be in the dress of her own choosing instead of it being something she essentially borrowed. So, I don't know, but I still think it's weird that he told her to do that, but, whatever. Getting back to the present again, she's currently looking at her wedding ring. The wedding ring, which upon their wedding day, Pak son tells her that she'll have to take care of it in case the true owner of the ring returns. Then she'll have to give it back. Now she's panicking and she retrieves the phone out of the trash that she never got to throw away. So now we know what she's about to do. We see Na Yuri adding water to her noodles and waiting 3 minutes for them to be ready. During that time, she gets a call from Pak son. He says that, "Hey, I only have a couple minutes to chat since it's almost 10 o'clock, when his usual phone call takes place." And she also is just like, "Oh, so are you cooking noodles too?" And he's like, "What? No, I'm currently driving. What I'm calling about is about Ji Sang-woo. Can you cough up any details regarding this man?" And he already has details on him. His age was just 34, where he went to college and what he majored in, etc. But he's like, "I need to know more about him. Do you know anything?" And Na Yuri is just like, "Oh yeah, well, he lives near the HBC building and he's an orphan." Oops. Pak son pieces together that he went to the Nuri Dream Center that used to be named something else, and I forgot to write down the name of this orphanage. Perhaps this was the place that Pak son was adopted from himself before the name change. But with that fact, he hangs up just in time to receive his phone call from the kidnapper, or rather, Hung Hee-ju. Pak son is like, "You messed up again, 406. Hung Hee-ju got some wine going, and she's like, "You know what I get if you give up Hung Hee-ju?" Hung Ina returning to her rightful place as Pak son's rightful wife. She was who everyone wished he would have married anyway. Well, except for your husband, but besides the point. Pak son is like, "You don't know a thing, so let me say this once. The person Ina met with before the wedding was himself, and that they made a deal. A deal where Hung Ina could never become Park Sun's wife. So there wasn't really anything the kidnapper could blackmail him on. With that bit of news, Hong Hee-ju slams the phone closed. As her husband walks in, she puts the phone in a cabinet and dumps out her wine. He comes to her, surprised that she's still up. He does mention at how proud he was of her at the interview, and he apologizes for underestimating her. Also, he was going to attend the Chungwoo Daily News anniversary event that was taking place tomorrow. So we get a little scene of the two moms. Hong Hee-ju's birth giver comes into this spot where Park Sun's mother is getting her hairstyle. Hong Hee-ju's mother refuses to wait. Park Sun's mother was just, is this like a good thing for another client to essentially come in while you're still servicing another? Hong Hee-ju's mother refuses to do that. She even bumps past the hairstylist. I'm like, she would have been thrown out if it wasn't for money. But she goes and sits into the seat next to her. It's like, well, we're family. And she's up there giving this snide comment about, I'm wondering if your husband will show up with another cute little aide. So her husband, of course, is prone to cheating a lot. So his mother just gets up and just drops the little apron and just leaves. I would have just loved her to pop that woman just once, just pop her. That's all I need. But I still want that truck to come for her. So next scene, the Chungwoo Daily News is having its party and they're celebrating 70 years of being in business. The Parks are there because family and, of course, presidential schmoozing. Chairman Hung is wondering where Park Sun is and why he hasn't quit his job yet to join his dad on the campaign trail, therefore marking his own presidential interest. Senior Park is trying to convince his son to join him, still combating about his son, of course, what he had already told him before. So Hong Hee-ju shows up and her mother comes and greets her. Well, greet is a little too kind. She drags her into a room asking about Hong Hee-ju's father being moved, which Hong Hee-ju is just like, your son-in-law moved him. Her mother's like, he knows about your dad? When Hong Hee-ju confirms, she jabs at her. That fight, Her mother is just like, why could you let him find out about something like that? What if the chairman finds out? And Hong Hee-ju is kind of like, you're not going to ask me about what happened or the reason why this man got moved? And her mother confirms that she doesn't care. Like, girl, I could have told you that. She does not care about anyone else but herself and what serves her. That's the only thing she cares about. And I thought that she would be a little bit more annoyed that she didn't have Hong Hee-ju's dad as a bargaining chip to have her acquiesce to whatever she wanted. But she was flippantly like, at least I don't have to pay for his room and board anymore. And before she leaves, she jerks off Hong Hee-ju's jacket to where her shoulders are bare, apart from some spaghetti straps, so that she's advertising her wares to her husband, I guess, who just arrived after her mother snagged her in the hallway. Hong Hee-ju hears some mean girls talking about her husband in the bathroom and how his supposed wife, Ina, was supposed to make an appearance but hadn't, and how creepy they found Hong Hee-ju was always in her sister's shadow all the time, pretty much all up under her. Feeling isolated in the ballroom and seeing those women talking to her husband, she takes a glass of champagne and heads outside to a balcony. And then she gets a notification from the modded phone. It's that time. 10 o'clock time. And taking another drink, she calls Park Sun. She steps on the bench she's been sitting on while the phone rings and he's not picking up. And she muses, saying that he neither cares about 406 or Hong Hee-ju. But he does pick up at the last minute, probably wanting a distraction himself from being at that party. Even when he got off the elevator, he kind of took his time getting off the elevator like he really didn't want to be there. She's hesitant to speak at first, and he encourages her to. She starts to ask him how he felt about the bridal switch, and he said it felt the same to him. And she was like, oh, sure, because here you're saddled with this sad, socially awkward appendage of Hong-ina. But she hated the life she was forced to live, full of luxury, but she bowed to it because she was too cowardly to refuse it and run. Park Sun defends his wife, saying she isn't sad, but observant. She's awkward due to people being rude to her first. And she didn't succumb to money, but did it out of love for her mother, who doesn't deserve it, honestly, but moving on. But the thing is that there's such a parallel to their own lives. Park Sun personally isn't chatting with others at this party now. He is also off into a corner, having this quote-unquote civil chat with the kidnapper, and confiding in said kidnapper that he hated opening his mouth and being around greedy and noisy people, but she was always the most quiet, his quiet space, and he got that anytime he looked at her, and he was able to breathe easier. She quieted his anxieties. He also said that she wasn't an appendage to Hungina, or supplemental pages rather, that she was a whole new language, and that she's repeated hand movements thousands of times to become who she is, so don't disrespect his wife like that. Now, the whole new language aspect of it, my soul felt that phrase when he said it. His love language throughout this entire spiel of his is so beautifully done. It is chef's kiss. I loved it. So well written. I think it's one of my favorite lines so far in this series, and it might be my favorite overall, but he may trump it. But that was such a beautiful poetic line. Then she asked the question, which we've all been asking that since episode 1, when it's like, we know what your feelings are, but why did you treat her like she was invisible if you think so highly of her? To keep her hidden to where people don't even know you are married to her, as if you're ashamed of her. She doesn't hear an answer but the ding of the elevator. And he comes out of it with her jacket in hand, and they're both on the phone. She trolls around and sees him, and she's a deer in headlights. Has she been found out? Well, we get a scene after this, and true to his word, Park Sun does stop at the police station for that picture he promised and to make that police report. After talking to the officers, they inquire about his wife's welfare before telling him about what all she went through with screaming, becoming sick, and them having to pull off to the side of the road. And Park Sun was like, hold up, you said she screamed. My wife did? So they give him a recording of their ride, which he watches in his car. Not while he's driving, he's off to the side. And then he hears her. She says, let me out, and is panicking to be let out of the car, banging on the windows. Park Sun is stunned, and he can't process it. Hearing it echoing in his ears as he drives off but starts to speed, replaying her panic in his mind, he stops the car, going through a variety of different emotions. Betrayal, hurt, wonderment, and then see the light verse comes into play with, your tender lies gonna make me cry tonight. Brilliant tie-in to this. And this is years of lies, even though he's not aware of how many. He doesn't know if she's been truly mute all this time and it came back suddenly due to trauma, or what, or she's been lying this entire time. She had this secret she's been keeping from him all this time. Now, when he had bragged and assumed he knew everything about her, he knows nothing. Also, him hearing her say, let me out repeatedly, it's almost like her screaming to let her out of this entrapment of a life she's had, that she's been forced to live, along with the unhappy marriage she's been subjected to, of the lies she had to tell by literally keeping silent. And we as an audience replay everything. The day he came in late to the office, he was at the police station, the same day of Hong Gi-ju's interview. So he's already fueled with the knowledge that she knows how to talk. Him asking during the interview now comes off as an accusation rather than a general curious question. He knew then that she knew how to talk, and so he was kind of accusing her at this moment. And I'll encourage you, if nothing else, if you cannot watch at least from that 30-minute mark on, watch at least that scene, that interview scene, from the standpoint of the knowledge you know now, the knowledge that he knows she can speak. It will definitely color the scene in a different light, especially when you get to the couples date reading he does, because it's more significant now that he knows one more secret of hers that she has no idea that he knows now. That speech is also poignant at how he pointed out how much of their lives were similar. and that he also is in a life he can't get out of. And in her, he found a kindred suffering spirit, which is why he gravitates to her so much, because they suffer the same. So when we get to the balcony scene, it seems that he's already come to a loving acceptance of this lie, because he probably already acknowledges that her being mute wasn't at her behest. This was her evil mother's doing. And since he had her jacket in his hands at the end, I am assuming that he probably saw her mother drag her down the hall into the room, and he might have listened in. Again, an assumption. I'm sure we'll get the flip side of it at the beginning of episode 5. Side note, I'm not sure if he knew she would be up here. I'm assuming maybe he did, considering that he had her jacket in tow and he was looking around the roof looking for her. But I thought it was a great callback that he went to the roof/balcony scene just like he did in the flashback scene earlier in the episode. It is his go-to escapism, but he also wants to escape in her. This episode I consider a discovery episode regarding Park Sun. Him uncovering one or maybe even two of the big monumental truths about her talking and maybe the voice he's been talking to. If he's astute, which he is, he'll put it together. But it's a discovery episode for us about him, his relationship with his parents, and how also he is in the same situation that his wife is in. Feeling suffocated, isolated, and she is his peace and had been for years, and definitely wouldn't have been that peace if he had married Hong-Ina. I'm just saying. So what do I think might happen in the next episode? Will he blow her cover? Does he already know it's her on the phone? I don't know. He could bust her right there, or he could just go along with it. Almost as if it's like, if this is the only way I can get you to talk to me, I'll entertain this phone thing for you for the moment until you get comfortable and talk to me for real. And also, because Park Do-jae did say that he can distinguish voice and age once they fix the frequency on the modulator. So I think he'll go that route. But I think also, like he had told her in the hotel, that even with her secrets, he won't force her to tell him. Not when he's got a few of them himself, but he'll wait until she's ready. The kidnapper by now has made a move every other episode, so I think in episode 5 will bring a new scheme along with Hong-Ina stirring up some stuff. Why else is she home? In the scenes we saw of her, she hasn't uttered a word, but yet she is already giving off this mean girl vibe. It makes me wonder if the reason why they didn't marry each other is because she didn't consider Park Sun worthy or blue blood enough, since he's seemingly a replacement kid. The reasoning is yet to be seen, but can't wait to get into that. I hope you guys don't mind the droning on and the fangirling on my part, but legit, I can't wait to dig into episode 5 and see what that one's all about. But please, like and subscribe. Stay a while. Let me know what your impressions have been up to this point, to episode 4. I've given you mine, but hey, it's just a thought.